Hey, thanks for hanging out with us from Explore Tulsa. You know, Trish, throughout my broadcast career, I met all kinds of salespeople, and they are all like magicians.
What do you mean they're like magicians?
You always got to watch their hands close, waiting for them to pull something out of their sleeve.
Well, that's not always the case, especially if they train with someone like Robert Johnson, who specializes in helping you build your network of leads.
You know, can you imagine a football team, an NFL team going, hey, we're not going to practice it. Spring training, don't need it. Try it. Now we've got a team from last year. We're just going to show up. We'll practice on game day. And salespeople are probably, by experience, the ones that just practice or wing it on the prospect. I'm just going to show up and we'll just see how it goes. Or they pass out business cards and price sheets and hope. A surgeon would never, hey, this is the first time I've ever done heart surgery, but I watched it on YouTube and I stayed at a fancy hotel last night, so I'm good. I'm really excited to try a heart surgery. No, but salespeople do it every day. And it's sad. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to get better, to train, to practice. And then when you're in front of a prospect, you're prepared to help them. You know, I find almost everybody likes to buy stuff. Very few people like to be sold or pressured into buying stuff. Really, my desire to get better at sales came from being terrible at sales first. I started with a major life insurance company right out of the military, and found out that at 22 years old I didn't have a whole lot of friends that had money, and their parents weren't any better off for the most part. My parents were trying to borrow money from me, and I went to work for the financial services company. I was literally the worst ever. And I was going in to quit, and my general agent said, hey, what about a prospecting course? I'm like, huh. So I ended up taking a sales training program and plunked down my last $3 grand on a credit card. I figured if I'm gonna fail in style. I'm not just gonna lay down and cry. In that next 10 months of my career, I ended up being #1 in their agency. And that's largely due to the fact that I learned how to ask questions, how to solve problems instead of just peddle financial services products. And I developed a passion for helping other people that were struggling the same way. Maybe they had a great service, a great product, really cared about solving problems, but didn't know how to communicate that. Well, Bulk Growth Strategy started in November a couple of years ago. I've been using the sales process for a little over 25 years, and it came out of the fact that I just keep running into people that have really very little support. The training they're getting is from the 80s, you know, hard sales, and you know, whoever talks first loses, that kind of stuff, and getting people to say yes enough times that they can't possibly turn their head and say no now, and just a bunch of nonsense. It really doesn't work. So helping those people to get to grow their businesses, I know a lot of people struggle. You know, they might even do well on the surface. When you get right down to it, their business is really not doing great. And I found some people have just accepted the fact that they think that's the best it's ever going to get, or they don't feel they're natural sales. There's no such thing as a natural salesperson, but they think they are. No, I'm not a natural salesperson. I just can't do it. I'm getting by. Well, there's no reason to just get by. So buyers are drastically different today. They're armed with a lot more information. Usually if they're in the palm of their hand, they could search and research. But I don't believe the psychology's changed. In the past, people bought, not because of the sales process, but in spite of it, I think. Even 20 years ago, when I was using the sales process I teach now, people were a lot more receptive to buying. So it hasn't changed, just the process of selling hasn't evolved much. You know, 70s or so, even before, beginning of time, it was dog and pony show or snake oil sales, that kind of stuff. And 80s, they started asking a bunch more questions. And now there's a lot of new psychology and research around this idea of making okay to say no. Hey, it just may not be a fit, that's okay. Can you tell me no? And taking pressure off, constantly taking pressure off. And what we find, the more or the easier it is to say no, the more likely they are to buy. They just didn't know that or apply that back in the 80s, and we're just starting to figure the psychology stuff out finally and applying it to sales. You'd hope that anybody would see it, learn it, do it, but it takes work and practice. The ones that'll do the practice, put in the effort, it's like your child, you know, walking for the first time. You see them do it and they report back their success and they're like, wow, this is so easy. Recently, one of my favorite guys came back and he said, I finally did the sales process the way you teach it from beginning to end, and it was the least pressure I've ever felt on myself and the most fun I've ever had, because there was no pressure. So that, it really is exciting to see somebody take it and run with it.